Hi guys, welcome back to Jay Stefan. If you are new here, I am Jay and my other half is Stefan. Together we are Jay Stefan. Half the year we live in Southern California and the other half of the year we live here in Germany. When you get this opportunity to live in two different countries, essentially you are experiencing two different cultures at the same time. You're experiencing different foods, you're experiencing different ways of living, different languages. And what's bound to happen over time is that you start comparing the two, even if you don't want to. That's just human nature, not necessarily finding the negative or positive in either one, but just noticing the differences. So today I want to talk to you guys about 10 things that as an American, now I find really awkward or different when I go back to the USA because I'm so used to some of the things here in Germany. There is a TikTok account which I came across recently, which I thought was intriguing. Well, to me, it was intriguing because I could relate to a lot of these points.
American things Europeans think are weird. Americans are not direct at all. Europeans are super blunt and they tend to tell you like it is, whereas in America, we tend to give a compliment sandwich. So we stick a criticism in between two compliments, whereas Europeans will just tell you what they think and they'll tell you if they don't like something or if they do, whereas in America, in the USA, we tend to not always be as direct.
This really hit home for me because now when I go back to the USA, I recognize the American talk immediately, and it's not malicious, it's not fake, it's just how American culture is, that Americans are not direct. They will give you a compliment and they will hide a criticism beneath that compliment. It's like a really nicely wrapped and packaged criticism. Whereas here in Germany, if someone feels anything that is off or they have a opinion on something that you are doing or saying or behaving, then they will tell you pretty directly. And I actually like that a lot, but I also somewhat like the American way as well. If I had to pick one, I would pick just being direct. Here in Germany, there's no sugarcoating. It's just the way it is, but it's not rude because a lot of Americans, I think that Germans or Europeans in general are very straightforward and rude people, but it's absolutely the opposite. I find Germans not to be rude or any European not to be rude. They let you know exactly how they feel. It's not rude, but it's honest. And I think that's actually a good word to explain to someone who's not been to Germany, that the European way of talking, communicating, is just to be dead honest.
In America, it's standard to tip 15 to 20%. In Europe, tipping isn't mandatory, but in some countries, it's a few euros or maybe 10%. Europeans are generally paid a salary to wait tables, while Americans make more money through tips.
Now, tipping is a huge issue, especially amongst my American friends. It never comes up as a topic in Germany. I think recently I've heard more about tipping because the culture here in Germany, I've noticed for the past 3 years or 4 years, the tip has increased. I remember the first time coming to Germany and we went out for drinks and I think the bill was around 38 euros or something. And I think we paid 40 euros. You just round up. And I was thinking back then, I was like, wow, aren't we supposed to give them more tip? But then slowly I learned that was the tipping culture here in Germany. Now, the past few years, I've noticed that the culture here is typically now 10%. Anywhere we go, it's 10%, whether we go to a small shop or a cafe or a bigger restaurant, it's always 10%. Whereas in the USA, the minimum in California, I can't speak of any other states, but in California, in bigger cities, it's 20% is literally the bare minimum that you would pay. If you pay less than 20%, they look at you like, what the fuck? And it goes up from there. So if you get really nice service, then you feel obligated pretty much to pay 25 and sometimes even 30%. There are so many factors that go into the tipping culture in the USA, and some Americans will argue, well, that is a responsibility of the restaurant owner that they should give them a better salary. So I don't know which way is right or which way is wrong, but that's just how it is. In the USA, that's what the culture is. In some resort towns in the USA, tipping is added into your bill, which we didn't actually know. So we went to South Beach, Miami. We didn't realize until the third day that each of our bill had gratuity already included at 15%. So we were paying 25% on top of the 15% we had already paid in. And none of the waiters told us anything, which back then I thought was pretty shady.
The movies are true. We really do have a lot of high school dances, although they aren't choreographed like this. We have homecoming, and fun fact, my first date with my to-be husband was homecoming. We also have prom, Sadie Hawkins, just to name a few. And yes, we also have prom king and queen.
So this one is actually quite funny because Stefan is German and he went to school here. And when we watch movies that are based on high school culture, I remember one time he asked me, I was like, that's just movies. This doesn't go on in real life. And I was like, nope, this is exactly how high school is. There are multiple dances. There are cliques in high school. High school is, I have to say, is really, really fun in the USA. But at the same time, it can also be your worst nightmare. If you're in with the popular kids, then your life is pretty easygoing and you have fun in high school.
Oh, it's so fetch.
Or you are with the smart kids, or you are with the sporty kids, or you are with the goth kids, or you are with the nerds. But either way, you belong to a group. But the problem that I see is if you don't belong to a group, that's when it becomes very difficult. Your life becomes very difficult in high school.
Because you got everybody there. You got your freshmen, ROTC guys, preps, JV jocks, Asian nerds, cool Asians, varsity jocks, unfriendly black hotties, girls who eat their feelings, girls who don't eat anything, desperate wannabes, burnouts, sexually active band geeks, the greatest people you will ever meet, and the worst. Beware of the plastic.
I was in the high school marching band. I was on the tennis team. I was in multiple different clubs for extracurricular activities. And I was also part of the drama club. So all these activities made me really enjoy high school. So if you're doing all of this, then high school is really, really fun. But if you're not part of anything, then high school becomes, I would say, it becomes a nightmare for a lot of people.
Americans are super loud, especially on our phones and in public areas like restaurants. We tend to air out our dirty laundry, also an American saying, by speaking super loudly. When I first moved to Germany, I remember I felt like I was whispering at the dinner table.
Every time we fly back to the USA, typically we fly Lufthansa. I'm still in kind of like the German mode because the flight attendants are speaking in German and we still see a lot of Europeans around us. As soon as we land and we get into the terminal, that's when I start hearing, it's like everything is so loud. And as an American, I remember I never thought about that how Americans were so loud. Now I think it's rude, but when I look back in my life, I can understand that I never thought it was rude because it was just my space, so I can do whatever the heck I want.
Whenever you meet an American, usually the first question you're asked is, what do you do for a living? This doesn't happen the same way in Europe. In the US, people are obsessed with their jobs and usually think of this as their identity.
This one aspect of the US culture now really bothers me. It never did before. So now when I go back and if I'm meeting someone new, they'll ask me, so what do you guys do for a living? And I almost not want to tell them because I feel like it's none of your business. And no one has ever asked me that here in Europe. I can't say they don't care what I do, but it doesn't affect the conversation. It's irrelevant. That should be up to the person to tell you on their own terms what they do for a living. Or maybe when you become, better acquaintances or maybe even friends, and then maybe you can ask, what do you do for a living? But in the USA, as soon as you meet someone, within the first maybe couple of minutes, they'll be like, oh, so what do you do for a living? So that has become the identity and sometimes even status. And that one thing that really bothers me now, because status is associated with what you do and how much you earn. So what you do People calculate how much you earn, what kind of house you live in, which neighborhood you live in, what kind of car you drive, and they slap a status on it, and that becomes your identity. And I just think that is really fucked up. So a while ago, Stefan and I went for dinner in Los Angeles, and before dinner, we went out for a couple of drinks. We went to the Sky Bar, and this woman walks up to us, and she's like, "Oh my God, what do you guys do for a living?" And I was like so caught off guard, and immediately I was really annoyed because first thing, we had just come back from Germany. Second thing, I wanted to have this just a calm, quiet dinner and drinks with Stefan. And so this woman we didn't know came out of nowhere, and she was in our space, in our face. And the first question is like, "What do you guys do for a living?" And I made it up completely. The first thing I said to her was, "We're not anyone important." And then she said, "No, I doubt that. I want to know what you guys do for a living." And I just made it up because I was so annoyed. I said, "Oh, we live with my parents in the basement. We're kind of in between jobs right now." She was like, "Oh, I thought you were someone important." And she walked away. And I looked at the Stefan. I was like, I can't believe she just said that. But at the same time, it was so funny that I was like, I'm so glad I said this to her, because it was like, go fuck yourself.
Also, at American restaurants, they bring the check when they think you're finished eating, while in Europe, that's often considered rude and they won't bring you the check until you ask for it.
This next point actually really does bother me now when I go back to the USA. When you're done with your dinner, they will immediately bring you the check. So I'm going to take a stab at explaining why this is the way it is in the USA. So I think this stems from the American culture is all for service. First of all, they bring you water right away. Then immediately they come back and they'll take your drink order, and they will come back and then they will be like, "Are you ready to order?" So you are immediately like greeted, you're aware, you get water, you get drinks, and then you order. And as soon as you're finished, done eating, they bring you the check because they assume that you want to get out of here. But here in Germany, it's very different. In Italy, it's very different. Anywhere really in Europe where you go, it's extremely different than the American culture. People like to just sit, and I'm so used to it. It's very relaxing. I find it so meditating in a way. You sit with your friends and you make a whole evening out of it. In the USA, when you go out with friends, it always seems like a rush. Here it's just like, when you sit and you make an entire evening out of it. I love that.
Americans wear their shoes in the house. Yep, the same ones we walked around in all day. Many Europeans in other countries take their shoes off at home. And in Germany, they have special Hausschuhe, aka house shoes, that they wear around the house.
This one I had to really get used to in Germany. And in the beginning, I would refuse to wear Hausschuhe. I just wore whatever shoes I wore outside. I was like, no, we clean the floors and it'll be okay. In the winter, forget it. Cleaning is a bitch. Also, I think maybe it also has to do with somewhat of the climate, because in Southern California, it's very dry all the time. So you don't bring in as much dirt as you do when it's constantly raining outside or it's moist outside. Especially in the winter months.
In the USA, windows are typically much cheaper. Many windows have a crank to open and close them, or a lever to push them up. European windows are better resistant to condensation. For example, in Germany, windows just open with a push and turn, making them easier to open and close and more resistant to breaking.
This was actually a little funny to me, because every time you go back, in every house that I've lived in growing up to the house that we are in now, the windows are a complete disaster to open. It takes all your strength to open windows. And on the opposite side here in Germany, I feel like the windows are such high quality. They're very easy to open, they're very easy to operate, and they open in so many different directions. It just all makes sense. In the US, it's always either sliding up or sliding on the sideways or the sliding door. I don't know what it is about windows in the USA. No matter what kind of quality you get, they're all just terrible.
In the USA, we go crazy for Christmas lights and over-the-top Christmas decorations. Even though the movies might make it look over the top,
250 strands of light, 100 individual bulbs per strand for a grand total of 25,000 imported Italian twinkle lights.
it's totally accurate. We like to cover every square inch of our house in twinkling lights. In Europe, the city centers are often decorated and beautiful, but homes don't usually have such over-the-top decorations.
This one is a give and take for me. So the thing is, in the USA, yes, people go all out in decorating for Christmas. Almost every house, I want to say, is lit up in the city where we are. So what you see in the movies is exactly how it is in the USA. People go all out for Christmas and for Halloween. The reason why I say it's a give and take, it's because what I love about Europe is the Christmas markets, and that's something we just do not get in the USA. And to me, that is so special that I'm okay with not seeing the decorations, the fancy decorations. I'd rather go to a Christmas market and have that experience over seeing all these millions of lights in other people's homes. So that is what I have for you guys today. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of these points. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.